What if I told you that in 91 days on the dot, my coaching client Casey went from knowing absolutely nothing about self storage to closing on his first storage facility? And here's the crazy part. He almost overpaid by $100,000 had it not been for a simple conversation. So, in this private Storage Wins community coaching call, Casey reveals how he found this deal, how he funded the deal, and how he ultimately closed the deals. And then, most importantly, the biggest lessons that he learned so that if you are serious about owning your first storage facility, you can follow Casey's blueprint. You can learn exactly what he learned going through this process. So, let's dive into this group coaching call where Casey's going to break down exactly how he found it, how he funded it, and overall what he learned from buying his first storage facility. We have had quite a few people reach out and say, "Hey, when are we going to hear from Casey? I want to hear about this deal. I want to hear about the ins, the outs, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between." So, guys, for those of you who might not know, although I'm pretty sure everybody knows, Casey and Savannah closed on their first storage deal. Casey, it's probably been close to a month at this point, right?
It was a month. Yep.
Yep. So about a month ago, they closed on a storage facility there in Oregon. And I'm going to ask him some very specific questions, hopefully taking us through the process. I want you guys to listen to the interview with the lens of how can you take some of Casey's findings and insights and apply it to your storage journey, right? So the idea here is, yes, we want to give him his flowers, and yes, we want to like put him on a pedestal right now and spotlight him and recognize him for kicking ass. But how can this apply to your storage journey? And then we're going to open it up for any questions that you have for Casey that maybe I didn't think to ask him. So Casey, is it cool if people kind of launch whatever question they have your way?
Definitely. Yeah. Ask away.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
Anything at all, for sure.
So if you guys have a question, a couple different ways you can do it. You can either drop it in the chat and then we'll make sure to address it. Or if you just want to raise your digital hand, and then we can make this super informal and kind of in and out. It doesn't just have to be me interviewing him. So any questions with regards to the process before we get going here, guys? No? Okay, sweet. Casey, and these are going to be kind of shorter answers, and then we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes. But
Sure.
let's kind of start with the beginning. So you and I met at an event back in March or April. I think it was April, right? I
Uh, yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was, yeah,
think it was
something
mid.
right.
I think it was mid-April in Oregon. Um,
Yeah.
what motivated you to start like your self-storage journey? Because you and I remember having a long walk in the woods with a group of other people, by the way. It just wasn't Casey
Yeah.
and I going for a walk in the woods, right? So a group of us like going on this like nature hike or whatever. And we started talking, and you were telling me about your rental properties. What was it that got you to say, "Hey, I'm gonna commit to self-storage"?
Um, I've always been intrigued by storage, as I think a lot of people that are in real estate. I think if you invest in real estate, I mean, it's like you're taking a huge step in the right direction. And I'm not saying, generally speaking, other real estate's not the right step because I'm no real estate guru pro whatsoever. But I was super intrigued by it. And I've looked into it for so long, I just never knew how to get into storage. The business model, I know enough about real estate and wear and tear on buildings, tenants, occupancy, landlord rules, residential, commercial, just the concept of storage. I was really motivated to learn more because it seems so simple. Obviously, you might have a facility with hundreds of tenants, but those tenants aren't walking in and out of their space 2 dozen times a day. Those doors aren't getting opened and closed 15 times a day. The biggest storage facilities you see. I mean, how many vehicles are in there a day? Five, six, 10, maybe. Just the more I learned about real estate, the more I realized, like, man, this is just seems like a really good avenue for somebody that wants to invest their money in something that's a business and real estate. So I mean, at that meeting when I met you, Alex, everybody was dabbling in real estate and everyone had wins, everyone had struggles. And to be honest, when you were like, and I don't know the entire background, but you kind of basically said, yeah, I think if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said I've had a lot of residential real estate and you had invested in a lot of real estate in the past. And you were basically moving your portfolio of residential and other style real estate straight into storage. And you had a lot of experience and a lot of years under your belt with that, and you were like so confident. You were like, this is what I'm doing because this is the best move. And I was super interested, but like to hear you be so confident about that. There wasn't anyone else in that room that was really like storage specific. A lot of the other people were like, they did different things and different kinds of real estate things, but you were storage specific. And that's when I was like, all right. For one, like when I first met you, I'm like, this guy seems to really know what he's talking about. I'm super interested in storage. And then once I talked to you and just learned a little bit more, is like, I don't know. It just, when you have that feeling that something's right, that's just how I felt about it. Because I've had a lot of struggles with other real estate stuff, and it's just never felt, you know what I mean? It's just never felt super like this. My passion for it has not been there. Like I feel towards the storage side.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's
thank you.
supposed to be short answers, so it's not
No, no,
short.
at all. That's all really helpful and gives us a lot of context and background. What fears or challenges did you face in kind of going through the process of committing and deciding, okay, this is what I'm going to focus my time and energy on? And guys, just so that you know, Casey and Savannah own a brewery company. So like that's their main quote unquote 9 to 5 is running that business. And they were pursuing storage on the side, so to speak, right? So what were some of the fears, challenges, hurdles that you guys had to overcome on the way to close this first storage facility? And most importantly, like how did you overcome any of those fears and challenges?
Um, I guess I've faced these fears and challenges with a lot of other things in the business world. So it wasn't anything. It's still scary, but I guess it's the same sort of thing we've done. And Savannah's been with me on the journey for most of it. I was 19 years old when I started my first business, and it was super jumping into the unknown. To be honest, this is the first mastermind kind of group I've ever been part of. After more kudos to you, Alex, after meeting you, getting to know you at the group, I saw the value in this because I was going into something unknown. I've never jumped into something and been any part of a community. Like when I opened my brewery, I literally did not even know how to brew beer. Like it was, I talked to other guys that brewed and they're like, well, what breweries have you worked at? How long have you been brewing? And I'm like, I brewed a 5 gallon batch of beer in my parents' horse barn a couple weeks ago. And you know what? I'm just going for it. So all my lessons I've learned have been learned probably the hardest possible way, like blood, sweat, tears, just terrible, awesome high highs, low lows. So the storage, I was like, you know what? We've drug ourselves through the mud so many times, but I have such a good feeling about this. I think joining this group was a huge support system for like me and Savannah. Is like, hey, all I know is let's get around like-minded humans and we got people to lean on, just like the question you just asked, Alex. That exact question we ran through our head from previous experiences. Then I think just doing it, just pulling the trigger, going for it. If I think about something very long, I instantly feel like I'm wasting time. If I'm like, you know what, if I give it now. With that said, though, I try not to be too, just shoot from the hip, because that's how sometimes you can make big mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, I just kind of is like, hey, this is the direction we want to go. It's not going to be easy. It's just like anything else in life. It's not going to just fall in your lap. You're not going to just wake up one morning and someone's going to knock on your door and hand you over like, hey, call this number. Here's a free storage facility. Or, hey, this guy wants to talk to you. Like, you have to go get it. And it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be scary like the entire time. Like, I mean, calling these getting anything into anything. I've always been nervous on any real estate investment I've ever done to a certain degree because it's always a leap. I'm putting a lot of my financials at risk, my family's well-being at risk to a certain degree, trying to mitigate that risk. As time goes on, I think you just try to balance that to where, try to put myself in a position where like I always go worst case scenario. I heard a guy give this brief here just a couple days ago about, it's unrelated, but it's military based on where the United States stands right now. And if you go into a scenario, but it's relative to business and this sort of thing, you want to kind of go worst case scenario. And then on that worst case scenario, what if the worst case scenario from the results of that worst case scenario happen? You kind of you don't want to be a negative Nancy, but you don't want to be like, oh, it's going to be good and great, and we're going to just jump into it. Like, you have to have that. And if you go worst case scenario and kind of like a second worst case scenario, and whatever result that lands on, you're like, you know what, we can still make this happen and we can still be successful. Like, we'll still move forward.
Yep.
It's a go all day long. Green lights, that's what I just drop the hammer and go. You know
That
what? All right, we came to that. Let's go.
That's insanely valuable. I love the framework of thinking through, hey, what's the worst case scenario here? And number one, that gets you comfortable. And then I always ask myself, okay, well, if this is the worst case scenario, how likely is that to happen? And if it were to happen, what would I do then? How would I pivot? And just thinking through that, I think can really feed you some confidence. Guys, I put everybody in gallery mode. Just kind of quick show of hands, like informal poll here. How many of you guys, and be honest, please, nobody's judging you here. How many of you guys would say, hey, I struggle with analysis paralysis, or maybe I'm one that I tend to overthink things? Hey, any show of hands? So Kate, Dwayne, Mark, the other Mark, Marie, so pretty much everybody, right? So Casey, what would you say, like, what would be your advice for the community, those that maybe admit, like, hey, sometimes I tend to like overanalyze, or I tend to overthink things. What would be
Uh,
the advice for them that you would say based on either this experience buying your first storage facility or in previous business ventures?
well, I don't know if I have the credentials to answer this, so take everything I say with a grain of salt because I really do feel like a lot of times I do jump into things a little too quick, but trying to, as I get older, the whole older and wiser thing. I don't know if wisdom has come to me yet, but I would say have a system, have like a some sort of steps you run through. I kind of also give it time, like a 2 week. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, if I'm this stoked and this amped and excited about this in 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks to me is a pretty good allotted amount of time to like do some due diligence, reach an owner, have them send you information. In a 2 week period, I usually gather about as much information as I need to figure out if this is going to still be good. And if in 2 weeks I'm still excited about that, I'm like, what are the next steps to move forward? Try to break that down fundamentally. I think if you have a list of things that you're like, you know, you need to know X, Y, Z, and as you gather that information, really try to I think in having a second opinion. Like my wife is perfect on this because I'm like, oh, look at this. Like this storage facility brings in $10,000 a month. She's like, okay, well, I want to see how much it's brought in every month for the last 12 months. Like, okay. We look back 9 months and it's like, oh, it was bringing in $4,500 9 months ago. It might be bringing in 8 grand now. And
Yeah, yeah.
in a perfect picture, it's 10 grand a month. So I'll look at that and I see perfect picture. She sees worst case scenario. We meet in the middle after, lots of talking.
Yeah.
But I think if you struggle from that, I mean, gosh, you don't want to move too quickly. I've have on the flip side, I've suffered repercussions of that, and has cost me time and money.
Yeah.
So I've had some hard lessons because of that. I've gotten lucky sometimes. I've not got lucky. I think if you just, I like the saying is default aggressive. You mitigate risks, but you're always default aggressive. If you're sitting idle, what can you do to gather information and move forward, even if it's just a tiny inch forward? Because sometimes there's a phone call you have to make, but you don't really want to make that phone call. And I've made those phone calls. I haven't. I've procrastinated and not made those phone calls. But then I've made those phone calls and been like, you know what? If I didn't have that one piece of information, that kept me from either moving forward or I'm like, I'm really good. I'm really glad I got that information. It's good. I know that now because of that, I'm not moving forward on this deal. So I think just consistency, having that list and staying consistent, not setting things aside because if you have momentum, don't lose momentum. That's what I tell people that are like starting businesses. They'll get really good ideas, but they'll get momentum, and then like 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month will go by. Be like, hey man, what's going on with that? Are you still like, oh, gosh, no, I haven't done anything with it. It's like momentum is huge. We used momentum during COVID. Our business didn't shut down during COVID. I mean, it had to a certain degree, but we kept everybody employed because I was so afraid of losing momentum. I mean, we have all these employees that come to work, they have their routine, we have their schedule. We're brewing beer, we're trying to manufacture beer. I mean, it's a machine, and you stop that machine, you stop that momentum. Us as humans, we're one individual little machine. So keeping that momentum, I think, even if you're just slow and steady, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the things I think about when I try to do this sort of thing.
Yeah, brother, there's so much to unpack there, and just in the interest of time, I'm gonna
I'm
reserve
sorry.
for
Yeah,
the follow.
dragging
But
it.
but no, but man, there's so much wisdom you just shared. And by the way, I don't think you give yourself nearly enough credit because you're clearly more than qualified to kind of share that wisdom and advice. And there's a lot to unpack, man. As I listen to you speak, you're clearly somebody, I think you and I are kind of wired the same, where we're like ready, fire, then aim, right? And then like we kind of jump off the cliff and we're like confident that we're going to build our wings on the way down.
Yeah.
And I'll admit that there's been some times where I wish I could take that back, and I wish I would have been a little bit more thoughtful and prudent getting into something. But
Yeah.
while people are overthinking and overanalyzing, we've already learned how not to do something, right? Now, the pendulum can swing so far the other way where you get involved and all of a sudden you get yourself into trouble. Well, that's part of the reason you guys have this community, and hopefully you leverage me and the others in the community to make sure that you're not just getting involved in any deal, but you're getting involved in the right deal. So I'm confident that people here took a lot away from what you just shared. I want to now transition into like the nuts and bolts of the deal. Walk us through how you found this facility. Like, was it cold calling? Was it direct mail? Was it on Crexy or LoopNet? Like, how did you even find this thing?
Well, I'll just be completely honest.
Please,
Probably
always.
more information than some of you care to get. But so my wife and I, and this is going to be out of left field. We
Uh-oh.
can't get pregnant naturally. So we've done IVF. We have one child. So my wife has to go up to a town north of here, about an hour and a half. We did a second round of IVF. I'm telling this story because she gets credit. She gets all the credit. So we drive up to Eugene, which is an hour and a half north of us. We did a second round of IVF, and unfortunately, it didn't work. It didn't work, and that's part of the gig. But we were driving up to these appointments, and it was on Labor Memorial weekend of this summer, the opening weekend of holiday weekend in the summer. We had drove up and she had a doctor's appointment and we are going camping with some friends. It was because of her doctor's appointment, it rerouted me to a route that I normally don't drive, especially because of where we were going camping. So we took this highway through this, basically up and over the mountains in Central Oregon. I've drove it before, but I mean, it's been 10 years since I was through there. So, but because of our interest in storage, literally when I'm driving, my head is on a swivel. I am just like, I'm looking at, I mean, I drive Savannah crazy because, and my friends too. Well, I'll be driving and, sometimes guys are like, oh, look at that car, look at that truck. And, sure, I see it, but I'm like, well, you see that storage facility back there? I wonder who owns that, I mean, literally, we've been doing a lot of hunting and driving across the state of Oregon, which I have found a second facility because of that. That was it. Just driving and I saw it. So anyways, I was driving, I saw it. Do you want me to share? I can share my screen, right, Alex, somehow?
Yeah, let me give you let me see here. Casey. All right, you're now co-host. So yeah, go for it, man.
Um, Gosh, I'm
But by
terrible
the way,
with.
while Casey's pulling that up, if you guys, especially if you're looking for storage in a secondary or rural or tertiary market, whenever you guys are driving, if there's a particular route you typically take an alternative route and then always be looking for storage. Like sometimes every year we go to the mountains, whether it's like Asheville or Blue Ridge or wherever, we're always like driving around. Like I've trained my family, like my little girls, every time they see storage, they say, Papi, look, storage, my wife. So tell people that you're with in the car, hey, be on the lookout for storage. And then all I do is I literally snap a picture of the sign with the phone number. That is all I need. With the phone number, that's literally all you need.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little side tip that doesn't take much effort, really. Awesome, Casey. We can see your screen now.
Okay, cool. And this is just for, I guess, for example reasons. This is the road I was driving down. This is a tiny little, like, it's up in the Cascades in Central Oregon. This is not even a town. I mean, it's a community. So, I mean, this is a total, like, uh, it's a bit of a risk on our end. I mean, just for the sake of this facility is in a really low populated area. This is not a typical, like I told Alex, I'm like, this is not the type of probably facility most of you will want to chase. It is not the type of facility that I envision trying to purchase on our first go. But you know what? We penciled it. We got it for a good price and it made sense. But this is what it looked like. I was driving by on this road and I just glanced over as I was driving and I seen this. Now, granted, all these doors were closed. The guys that we bought it from, this is actually a very updated Google drive-by shot. This is what it looks like. It's small. There's 36 units, but I was driving by it and I just saw it. I glanced over. There's a little cabin. You can kind of see it right here. To be honest, I'm super stoked for this storage facility and I know it's all about that. But there's like a little cabin back there and we can stay there, and I can take my side by side up there and ride in the winter. So like that's yeah, irrelevant point, but there is a little story or a little cabin that we can stay in while we work on it. So I'm getting ready this week to go up. We're gonna like basically try to just give it a facelift, but it's small and it's in bad shape. So we're gonna paint it. The fence is getting rebuilt. All the landscaping is getting fixed. But really, to be honest, it's a great starter facility for Savannah and I feel like she's super on board with it. It's not a huge jumping into, a giant facility. I think this is a great way for us to kind of get our feet wet and learn a little bit too. So, Alex, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I remember my first time. My bad. Just for some context, could you share with everybody how much you purchased the facility for, and then what were the negotiations like? What were some of the hiccups or the challenges in, if there were any, in getting the
Yeah.
deal done with the seller? So you saw the facility on your drive, right?
Yeah. I
You obviously contacted them. Like, walk us through from there all the way through closing.
Okay. So the owners that own this building or this facility here own a giant amount of property up here. So this is there's a big resort up here. There's a big lake. It's Crescent Lake, as you see on the map. So it's like it's a big summer, a lot of people visit there in the summer and the winter. There's a ski resort. So this company owns a ski resort. They own the resort at the lake. They own a bunch of cabins. They own an RV. There's a giant RV park back here in the trees. So I contacted once I looked up the land, who owned the property, I was able to track them down. It took a little bit of work because I had to basically call somebody. They sent me to someone else. I was pretty persistent at that point because I was very interested. I mean, and I don't have a lot of experience, but this was like the first storage facility I've ever seen that was vacant, that was empty. And so I was very, very motivated because I thought, well, hey, you know what? I have the ability and skill set to work on something that needs work. I'd rather buy something cheaper that needs some work that's vacant, try to get it up and going for my first one. So reached out to the company that owned it. They were actually very receptive to the idea of selling it. They got back to me right away. They were really, really great. The guys, I could tell they're a professionally ran company. They're big real estate guys themselves. They do primarily like multifamily or like apartments. They own a lot of that sort of thing in Oregon. So this to them, they're just like, they basically had just forgot about it. But yeah, so we made a call. One of the calls, it was a while ago. It was July 5th or July 6th. We were coming back from a trip. We did a group call and I was able to talk to you guys a little bit. And you guys gave me some insight. I just ran the scenario quickly and kind of was like, hey, this is kind of what it is. And I was going to offer them around 300,000 and kind of honestly, after the call and kind of hearing some feedback, we lowered our offer to 200,000. I think it's tax assessed at like 330 or 340, but I mean, you can't even hardly go off that for things. It's tax assessed value on real estate and the buildings is hard, especially when you're talking to a storage facility that's an actual business. But the call helped me a lot. We offered him 200,000. The guy that I asked him if they're open to selling it first. I wanted to talk to him on the phone. This whole thing happened over email, so it was a little bit different than like the type of scenario I prefer. I really do not like negotiating through email. That's a personal thing. These guys are big business, big real estate. They were like, some guy wants to buy the storage facility. They're busy with their stuff. I'm sure they're like, didn't have time to talk to me, and it was small beans to them. So I put that into the calculus. I said, you know what? They want to email. I'm going to email. I'll do whatever. I'll go the way they want to go. I do not like the disconnect email gives, but still, they were very cut and dry. They were very to the point because once I talked to him, I think I left him a message and he emailed me back. And basically his very first email said, yes, we're open to selling it. What's your offer for the property? I mean, it's like straight to the chase. I'm like, okay, well, I said, to be honest, I got to walk the property. I got to go there, put boots on the ground. I want to see it because of the situation. I drove by it, but luckily it's within driving distance. So I drove to it. I said, all due respect, I can't really give you guys an honest offer until I can walk the property. So we went and walked the property after the call with you guys, and it helped a lot because it was like really looking at the property, and you got to be realistic. And I'm again going back to what you said, Alex. I'll pull the trigger and like just be like, oh, all right, we'll figure it out afterwards. Well, walking the property with my wife, having a second set of eyes on it, really, helped. So then we sent them an offer at 200,000, and they're like, yep, we'll take 200,000. And that was probably like the fourth or fifth email. It happened really fast. And to be honest, it was very easy in this case because I think they just wanted to basically wash their hands of this property that they're doing nothing with. It is in a tough area to get tenants. It's a small populated area. It is growing. It's kind of a vacation town. There's a lot of vacation rentals. I think that will help to some degree though, because people that, want to store their stuff for their winter sports and things like that. So it's a total gamble. It's still, I have a backup plan if we cannot sell it or if we cannot rent it, we cannot get it occupied to the occupancy rate we would want. We're still going to give it a facelift. We're going to make it look really good and we'll put it on the market and sell it. That's our plan B. And if we're stuck with it, we own a cabin that has a bunch of garages for our friends to come park their side by sides in and ride in the winter. So that's not what we want, and that's not our intent. But
well, the thing is, it sounds like you bought it right. So this is what, about 6,000 to 7,000 square feet of storage, more or less?
It's probably between 5 and 6, 39 units. I have the
yeah, so like that's the point is that you paid basically like $35-$36 a square foot, right? Like you probably would spend more to build it than you did to buy it, right?
Well, and that's part of our reasoning was like, I mean, it would cost me every bit of probably 300,000 to 400,000 to build this in today's market right now. I know construction pretty well. We just built a small commercial shop. It's not quite like this. It's actually built way cheaper than this. This is all concrete block, but yeah, I mean, if you can buy something for, gosh, half of what you can build it for, three-quarters of what you can build it for, that I think is a good baseline too to kind of go off of.
Yep. Yep. Guys, I have probably 3-4 more questions I want to ask Casey, but I want to open it up in case anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered up to now, or maybe something I haven't asked, or if you guys want to take it in a different direction. Does anybody have any questions? Again, I have 3 or 4 more questions to ask him, but does anybody have anything for Casey?
Ask away. I mean, I'm here. Like, if I can give any insight, I mean, I'm still learning myself, but if there's anything that could help, that would be great.
Kate, did you have something to add? Because I noticed your face when Casey said that he was going to offer 300 and then he offered 200 and then they accepted it. One takeaway for me is that it's a reminder that you should feel a little awkward and uncomfortable when you make offers. And if you're not, you might be offering too much. So Casey was very close. Like if Casey wasn't on this group call, and by the way, I don't share this to take any credit because Casey did all the work, Casey and Savannah. But if he would have offered 300, guess what? They would have accepted 300. And he got it for 200. And they accepted it on the first shot, which probably means he could have gotten it for even less. Now, he still got it for a very good price. But as I hear Casey's story, it's a reminder even for me, and I've made thousands of offers throughout the years, is that you should feel some type of way when you make an offer. Like you don't want to like feel like you're insulting them. And like, it's not like Casey made $100 offer for this facility, but you don't want to like come up with your best foot forward, if that makes sense, when you make an offer. And there might be some different schools of thought as it relates to that. But like for me, you can only go one way when you make an offer. And if you're not, if you try to get the seller to give you their asking price and you just are not able to do that, then you want to start low, or at least start with a very broad range, right? Sometimes I talk to owners that I'll do my quick back of the napkin analysis and I'm like, yeah, this thing's probably worth 1.2, 1.3. Well, and let's say I think I can get it to 1.7, 1.8. Well, I'm not going to come up with a million one offer, right? And start where I need to be. If I can't get a number from them, like I might give them a range of 5 to 850, 5 to 900. It's a very broad, big range, right? So Kate, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Did you have any questions or any takeaways as it relates to either the offer he made or anything else?
Well, I was wondering, you mentioned just relative to that it's a tough area. I guess related to the population, like lower population, and I'm just curious, like what the median household income was, and then kind of what your decision was related to, like how you decided that this was, worth doing relative to that.
Yeah. I think the price point was huge because it's zoned commercially. It's on Highway 58, which is a popular highway. It is next to some other commercial real, well, kind of semi-commercial. I mean, it is commercial real estate, but it's these guys here. The property is getting fixed up. This area is kind of up and coming. I factored that in. There's a lot of vacation rentals, a lot of new houses being built that are vacation rentals. So I know that there's people up there with money. I did look up the average household income, and I can't remember. It was higher than I thought. I had
50,
that information.
52.
I did factor that in, and I just remember that number being a little higher than I anticipated. So that was a little bit of reassurance. I think again, kind of just going through breaking it down, the price point was the biggest factor for me. I felt confident from what other units and facilities I've seen on the market and the prices they are at. There's a couple other facilities that are nearby here, closer to Bend, which Bend, Oregon is very storage saturated, and surrounding areas are. There's been a lot of new facilities being built, but like there's a facility that was maybe a little bit bigger than this for sale in La Pine, which was it's the next closest town to here. Can't remember exactly how many units it had. It wasn't as well built as this. It wasn't concrete block. I mean, it was still great. It was new. It was metal and everything, but they literally were asking $1 million for it. And I called the guy. I talked to him about this facility like a year ago, and he just said, he's like, yeah, he knows he'll eventually sell it for close to that, because of the prices are just kind of crazy. And I was comparing that to this, going, well, if he thinks he can get $1 million, even if he gets 700,000, 600,000, that's still 3 times what I'm buying this for. So that's basically that's when my green light went on, and I went, yep, I'm going to move forward with this at $200,000. It's like, I kind of just had that feeling like, even if I have trouble getting it occupied, um, even if I'm at 50% occupancy, which is not the goal, I'm still, $2,000 a month or something like that. So that was it. Having the cabin on it, the little cabin. My wife got super excited about that because she's like, oh, we got a spot we can come stay. She even wants to fix it up and maybe rent it out as a little Airbnb thing. So she's pumped on that. That's totally not something we want to get sidetracked with, but that did factor in. I think it'll be a good challenge. I'm up for the challenge. Again, I'm from a small community that's actually similar to this. And I know, and there's one family that has a storage facility in the community I grew up in. I drove by it my entire life, never thought anything about it until literally a few years ago. They put it on the market for $900,000, and they instantly pull it off. They got like nervous, they pull it off. They're a retired couple, they make good money. And it's the most comparable. If you're comparing apples to apples, the community I grew up in, I mean, gosh, it was, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 people, like, and I'm talking rural, like in a huge area. It is directly comparable to this. She's 100% full. She has people calling her all the time. No Google listing. Has literally a fence like this with a banner out front. It's the good old boy country, whatever. It's not, she doesn't need a Google listing. I mean, but like, so I looked at this, I'm like, man, I just feel like we should be able to get with being part of this community, having things online now. Let's try to make it happen. And so it's definitely a bit of a risk. Kind of walks through my my thought process, I guess, if that makes sense.
But it's a very calculated risk, Casey. Like I just spoke at a storage event last week in Louisville, and
Oh,
my talk.
Alex, I know, is mine messed up?
No, I'm not on mute. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna tell me
Can
I
you
was
guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Oh,
can hear you, Casey.
I'm sorry. I muted my freaking computer a minute ago. Okay.
No problem. We can hear you. I was just
Okay.
sharing how I had the opportunity to speak to a group of storage investors last week in Louisville, and I presented. And one of the takeaways that a lot of people shared with me after is that American Premier Storage, which I just sold over a month ago, like a lot of things did not go as planned. Like literally, I had a lot of challenges with that thing, and I still made almost $400,000 profit. And I don't say that to like pat myself on the back, because again, a lot of things did not go as planned. But the takeaway was, if you buy right, storage can cover up a lot of challenges that happen that are either expected or unexpected. So at the end of the day, if you buy it right, things don't necessarily have to go as planned. Obviously, we'd like them to go as planned, but sometimes in business, we get involved in something and, you know, whether it's a shift in the market or whether it's this or that, you're going to have challenges, but buying right can cover up a lot of mistakes and or challenges. And hopefully that kind of gives you guys a little bit of courage and confidence to make offers that make you a little bit uncomfortable, because you can only go up from your offer. It's hard to like make an offer and then go down from there, right?
Yeah.
So Brian, let's go to you, man.
It was interesting. The thing is, what do you think your biggest challenges are? You've now made you're committed to it and everything like that. Like, what do you see the first priorities being? I mean, besides fixing it up, and my questions really revolve around the management aspects of it. I don't know how far away you live from this property and stuff like that. And, you know, getting people there and then dealing with them, that type of thing, getting people to move in and stuff.
Yeah. So I totally am kind of lucky on another level with this deal because it was owned previously. This resort owned it. The resort has employees and they have a maintenance guy. Their maintenance guy is who I've been communicating with. He's the one that meets me there. He's the one who gave me the keys. He showed me around. He unlocked stuff for me. It just so happens from the first time I met with him, and this was another thing that we factored into the calculus of purchasing this, was his wife takes care. She has a little side business and she maintains Airbnbs for some clients up here in this area. She does about a dozen or so. And from probably one of the first questions I asked him, I live 2.5 hours away from it. So if there's a problem with a door, or someone's lock breaks, or someone needs a lock, or someone needs in, or someone needs out, you know, there's a million things that could happen. But those little things that someone just needs to run down there or be there in person for, I asked him, I said, would you or your wife, they live there. They're from there. They live there. They're not going anywhere as far as I know. I said, could I kind of put you guys on like a monthly retainer or like $200 a month or something like that? For one, she would take care if we were to rent the little cabin thing out. She'd take care of that. But they are also my go-to for that sort of thing. I've been in communication with him and they've been really good so far. So that will be a continuous challenge. I think my biggest challenge is just going to be getting tenants and getting quality tenants. To be honest, like acquiring the property, fixing it up, those sorts of things, like I feel like I kind of can mitigate and go through that and figure out how to get to that point. To be honest, I feel like here in about a month after we get it set up, I'm going to come to the group and be like, all right, that's where I'm going to struggle because that's when it goes from real estate to business. And it goes from being a handyman and working on a building to being a storage owner, managing storage. I've never done that before. I've never done this. So that's when I'm probably going to come to the group and be like, hey guys, like, what do you think? Like online management, I want to do. The nice thing about being zero occupants is I can start everyone off on the right foot, or however we want to manage it. It's going to be easier. It's going to be harder because it will take me longer because I'm starting from zero. But one thing that does excite me about not having any tenants is if I do online management or like ACH payments or auto payments or anything like that, I want to start out doing it the right way with the very first tenant. I do not want to get 10 people in there and they go, okay, now we got to switch on how you pay us, or because looking at other, facilities where they have maybe an on-site manager, they have personal relationships with their tenants and the people in there. They're like, oh, well, Bill, he's always late, but I always call him and he's got to give me a check. And I want to try to avoid all of that. So at least having your guys' knowledge, some of that, I know that's going to be challenging. Marketing it, advertising it, that's my biggest challenge. I think getting quality people in, because it is a rough area. And I know what kind of people could, come in, dump their stuff, pay me 1 month, and I'll have a storage facility storage unit full of stuff that, they won't pay on, because I don't want to have to do, the cleanouts and the auctions and things like that. But I think that is, from what I see, that will definitely be, that's the part is the most unknown for me. So I foresee that being the challenging part.
Yeah. And Casey, we'll talk, I'll help you through the management of it. Easy Storage Solutions is going to be a management software that I recommend. That's very simple. It's very reasonably priced. So you're definitely going to want to get that. You're going to want to get a boots on the ground again, to your point, one of the benefits of having 0% occupancy is that you don't necessarily need to have all those things at this very moment, but those are the
Yeah.
things coming in your very near future.
Correct.
Yeah. All right,
Is
this
there-
we got some questions, Dwayne, and then Dan.
All right, I got a few questions, so I'm just gonna fire away and then you answer them as it is. Like, who do you see as like your avatar, like your ideal tenants? Is it more gonna be residential, more of the seasonal tenants, more commercial tenants? Like, who do you think your ideal tenants are gonna be? Because I heard you say several times in that area is gonna be a little bit of a difficult and a challenge. And also, how are you gonna overcome those challenges? What type of marketing play do you have in mind to basically get going? How much are you going to be investing in CapEx? What type of CapEx are you thinking about doing in there? Obviously, I know you mentioned new fence, paint. Are you going to be doing anything else? How much are you going to be spending? Curious to know a little bit about the competition in that particular area. And also curious, how did you buy it? Did you finance it? Did you just pay for it cash? Did you do seller financing? Anything of that? And then basically your timeline to kind of get this all up and running. Sorry, I know it's a bunch of questions, but answer at
Oh,
will.
those are good questions. You might have to remind me of a couple of them.
ahead.
I'll try to go off memory here. I was making some notes, but I missed it some.
Okay.
So just let me know. As far as like my perfect, what I would picture as like a good tenant in my mind would be the people that own vacation cabins up there that need a spot literally to store. It's a big snowmobiling area, big winter sports area. The units are perfect for snowmobiles. A lot of people, just like jet skis, they sit in their garage 9 months out of the year. I want to fill every one of those units with snowmobiles that people come in and use for 2-3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time they just sit there safe, sound. They're not opening the door 100 times a day. That would be my perfect tenant.
Awesome.
I imagine that being a certain percentage. I don't foresee me being able to get 100% of that. There's going to be people that are coming and going, moving, living there temporarily. Your typical, like, just need a spot to store their household goods. Commercial wise, I do not think I'll get any commercial tenants. There are contractors building homes up there. I know there's happens to be another facility we're looking at that's in a very rural area as well. And in Eastern Oregon, they're putting a lot of solar panels up. So there's like a big push for solar right now on the eastern side of the state of Oregon. They got a lot of funding for that. So there are, she is renting units out to some of these storage contractors, to these
Contractor developers.
solar, solar contractors, which is a short, I don't know, they've been there for 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of, I could probably get a little bit of that marketing wise. Yeah, I need to get, I definitely need some assistance with that. I mean, I only know what I know from like marketing a brewery. So I'm just gonna like Google, I don't know if I really need or want a website, but like Trevor or Alex, you said this easy storage solutions. I want to
and take a look at the
into that.
chat. I just listed like 7 things you can do from a marketing perspective. So you might want to copy paste that. In fact, for all of you, these are things that you're going to want to implement once you find your facility. But the basics are like you want really, really good signage. The good thing for you, Casey, is that it looks like you're on a main road. So signage is really, really helpful for you. Do not underestimate, guys, the importance of a Google My Business listing. Right. So Google My Business listing, I leverage a vendor called Storage Reach, which basically solicits Google reviews from our existing customers. So like with Amelia, we went from, we must have gotten like a 400% increase in reviews just by using their service. And it's like $50 a month or something that we pay. So Google reviews are super important, as you guys know. We do pay-per-click marketing. You can advertise for free on Facebook Marketplace. Any type of grassroots marketing, whether it's flyers, direct mail, partnering with local businesses. Casey, if that were my facility, I would be establishing relationships with, it seems like that's a vacation spot. So anybody that provides any type of vacation, whether it's like they rent snowmobiles or they're a big Airbnb host or anything like that, I would be looking to see how you guys could establish some sort of joint venture relationship, right? Maybe you get them a big discount on a personal unit for them to store their snowmobiles in exchange for X. Like you can get very creative with this, but like from a marketing perspective, those are just some of the things that you want to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I'm open to suggestions with that. Yeah, marketing a product that I've never owned before. So it's all new. But that's a good, yeah, I like that, Alex. There is a couple places, just you tell me that. I'm thinking about some businesses down here that, yeah, that's a good idea.
But by the way, one thing that I do, and you guys might think, why would they do that? Is partner with other storage facilities. So we have built relationships with other storage owner operators in Amelia Island, and some of them are full, and we'll pay them, 20, $25 for a referral if they're full. So if they have customers that call and say, hey, I need a 10 by 10, and they're all full, they don't have any vacancy, they'll give them our phone number, and those are free leads that we get. Now, obviously, when we get that tenant, we'll pay them. So don't think that, hey, that's the competitor, so I'm not going to collaborate with them, because we've actually gotten tenants, or I should say customers, from partnering with other local storage facilities.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it for sure.
So I trust you got a lot of value out of that private group coaching call with my coaching client, Casey. And here's the biggest thing. Casey took massive imperfect action. He didn't overthink it. He just followed the blueprint that we laid out within our Storage Wins coaching community. But here's the question. Are you ready to buy your first self-storage facility? Because if you are, I want to encourage you to click the link below, book a free strategy session so we can have a conversation about how you can buy your first facility within the next 6 to 12 months. But before you go, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What is the one thing holding you and preventing you from buying your first storage facility? See you in the next video.